design of a spiral garden and circular pool, I thought of the idea of representing a series of international dancing figures in bas-relief. The first work was to sketch out the various positions of these dancers as I am doing here. This is a Mongolian dancer with the Dragon of China at his feet. After completing a series of these figures drawn on pasteboard, I cut away the background, decided on the sequence, and bent them into a circular drum-like shape as a central point for the spiral garden. I measure the height of the little model with a compass in relation to the width of the surrounding pool. At this point, I asked that the pool be made wider so that the complete figures might be reflected in the water when illuminated at night. A slightly larger model was then made, and the surrounding walks and water designed to fit the new proportion. Of course, a great many drawings were made before I could select the 7 used in the final design. Certain ones were discarded as inappropriate, and I added designs of palm leaves, clouds, symbolism to suggest the country from which these dancers came, and to serve as a screen to the necessary iron supports. Now we see the 4-inch model and the 1-foot model, which is the size presented to the Board of Design for their judgment. The mirror beneath is used to show the reflection as it would be seen in water. This model was illuminated within when submitted to the fair authorities, giving the effect of the whole scheme. Upon acceptance, I was ordered to proceed with the 4-foot model shown here in plaster as I cover it with a coating of shellac. Turn it around, we see on the left the African drummer, and now Pavlova and her swan. The Mongolian dancer, the Cambodian dancer with her 7-headed cobra under her feet, the American Indian dancing the eagle dance. At this point, the sculptor had to step out and turn the work over to the fair authorities, who made a contract with a group of professional unionized modelers in the studio of René Chambellan. This is the foundation of plaster on a section of wooden cylinder enlarged to 4 times the size of the model by a pantograph machine with a long metal arm which holds 2 pointers. A man guides the small needle on the left of the picture, which automatically controls the long needle on the right, which marks on the large model a 4-time enlargement of every point taken by the small one. Each one of these points is marked by a cross, and by driving a nail into the surface of the plaster and burlap. The head of this nail marks the exact spot. or 4,000 of these points are taken on each figure before any of the clay surface is applied. When all the points are set, the work is turned over to the modelers, who apply the clay onto the foundation until the surface leaves just the tip of the nail exposed. My figure of Shiva dancing on the moon is the one in this picture. Bas-reliefs are generally modeled on a flat surface, but in this design, every figure was on a curved surface. This added the difficulties of the problem. Now the clay is patted on by the palm of the hand, and the surface gradually pulled together by the tool technique, taking care never to move the tips of the nails, which are always left visible. The small model is hung from above so that the modeler can verify all his details. After the figure is completed, the decorations and the costumes are added. The edge of every form of each section must fit exactly to the next one when finally set together. The bells on the anklets of the Indian dancer are being applied in the clay. And now a rough texture is made over the entire surface, so that when placed in the open air, the effect will be that of stone, rather than of smooth white plaster. This gives added scale to the whole composition when seen out of doors. I frequently visit the studio and supervise the work. In this picture, I am checking with a compass the accuracy of the 4-time enlargement. As the panels are about 20 feet high, there is a lot of ladder climbing involved. When the clay is completed, the plaster caster decides just where the sections of the mold are to be made. He inserts thin brass shims which serve as dividing lines between the sections of the negative mold. He presses them carefully into the soft clay surface. He now mixes the plaster in a keg of water, letting it sift through his fingers. He dips it out in a flexible bowl and stirs it to the consistency of thick cream. He now throws it over the surface of the clay, keeping carefully within the bounds of the shims. He applies a thin layer of burlap against the wet surface of the plaster before it sets. This becomes an integral part of the mold. Jute is wrapped into wads and dipped into the plaster. This is laid along the edge of each section of the mold, giving the additional strength needed. All this looks very simple to the layman, but just try it yourself and see what happens. When all the pieces are made, a framework of wood is lashed to the back of the completed mold to enable handling and lifting. Each one of these plaster negative molds weighs nearly 1,000 pounds. And this one shows one of the sections being lifted off by the traveling crane. The original clay is seen at the left of the picture. This is the back of the mold showing the ropes lashed to the wooden framework. It so happened in the Chambellan studio that the final casting had to be done one floor beneath where the figures were being modeled. We watch them now lowering these molds through the trapdoor in the floor. Extreme care was used to avoid chipping any of the edges during this operation, for at this point, the negative mold is all that remains of the sculpture, the original clay having been damaged by the pulling off of this negative mold. This shows the workman destroying and tearing down the original clay figure with considerable gusto. At this moment, the sculptors generally arrange to be absent from the studios, although we all know that this same clay can be used over and over, and that this painful operation is repeated every time that a figure is made. The fate of the sculpture now rests in the hand of these expert craftsmen. They remove the pieces slowly and carefully, picking out the clay that sticks to them. They clean them. After this, they are covered with a layer of shellac, as shown in this picture. The sections are then reassembled and fitted together to form a complete shell. Into this, strong plaster is poured for the final positive cast. in turn is reinforced by laying burlap into the plaster while still soft. And on top of this, another layer of plaster is applied. Iron bands are bent to form a sort of skeleton inside of the molds. These irons are 1 inch wide and 1/4 of an inch thick, and it takes great strength and judgment to bend them accurately around all the forms. Wads of jute hold these bands to the inside of the mold, and this operation completes the work of reinforcement. Of course, all this iron work has to be made waterproof so that it will not rust. The men are now lashing the wooden frame onto the back of the positive mold to enable them to handle it with safety. The figure of Pavlova is seen sideways at the back of the picture, while the workmen raise the next mold into position by the electric pulley. Now we have to repeat another operation of destruction by ripping off the wooden framework and burlap, leaving the final positive cast. It was necessary to dry these in strong currents of hot air for many weeks before they were waterproofed by the linseed oil, which was sprayed over them inside and out. Finally, the day comes when they are loaded into a truck and carted over to the World's Fair. The weather was icy cold, which made this operation even more difficult. You can see how cold it was by the frosted breath of the workmen. The truck drives off, showing us the Chrysler building in the background, and begins its journey to the Flushing Fairgrounds. Arriving on the site, we find the glass brick foundation of this fountain already completed, and the iron framework which is to support the panels when they are set in place. Every operation has to be done with the greatest care and precision, as the weight of these casts is tremendous, and any uneven strain might cause a serious crack or warping of the surface. The first figure set in place was the Cambodian dancer. And here we see her all alone, awaiting her international neighbors to join in the dance. Trilon at the back of this picture, and the workmen who are bolting and lashing the casts to the iron framework. It was so cold often that the plaster and water froze before we could apply it to the figures. Thousands of tulips and bands of purple and yellow pansies made the most brilliant spiral pattern of color for the first few weeks of the fair. Figure of a Bali dancer on the left, Shiva dancing on the moon, and the African drummer on the right. The effect of stone is quite evident in this picture. This effective shot shows the crowds of people coming down the ramp from the Trilon in the background. Japanese cherry trees and peach trees are all in bloom at the same time with the tulips. Early in June, the entire garden was replanted with red roses and ramblers for the visit of their majesties, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. We see Perelon Hall in the background and the terrace outside of the official dining room and Mr. Whalen's offices. The mysterious Trilon, over 600 feet high, leads us down from the clouds into Perelon Garden. The different hours of the day change the colors of all the sculpture at the fair in a most unexpected manner, the sunlight and shadow playing a most important part for the artistic effects. Shows the sunset glow on the stone-like surface of the East Indian Shiva. The girl of Bali with her decorative headdress and her fan. And now the Cambodian dancer. An evening view with the green glass cylinder lighted from within. The glass bricks at the base are seen reflected in the water, but only when there is no wind can the complete reflection be seen on the still surface of the pool. We end our picture with a view of the magical fountains, which have filled millions of people with their dramatic geysers, fireworks, and music.